Before we talk about the meaning of the slave Bible and its impact on African Americans or any other black person throughout the Americas, let's first make sure that we have the right information concerning it. You see, the slave Bible wasn't in existence until after the 1804 revolution by the people of Haiti. This was the first time a successful slave revolt occurred in the known history that resulted in an independent nation that has still survived to this day. Now, the slave Bible coming right after that was a way for plantation owners in the Caribbean. This book was not widely used in the North Americas or the South America. It was mainly used in the Caribbean in order to train slaves how to be Christian and how to be obedient to their masters. But the 1804 revolution in Haiti scared the bejesus out of white plantation slave owners in the Caribbean, since most slaves that came from Africa resulted in the Caribbean or in South America. Not as many, nowhere near as many went to North America. There was more of a need in the Caribbean with the cash crops and in South America. So this book was utilized by Charles Jones in order to indoctrinate those Africans who were coming over with their traditional religions and bringing them under Christianity, but in a submissive state of Christianity. You see, prior to that in North America, slaves who were being taught Christianity, they were handed a full Bible, but they were only instructed to teach or read certain aspects of it. You know, things like render unto Caesar what is Caesar. Whatever government you're born under, that's the government. You should follow their laws and you should pray for your leaders. That slaves be good to your masters, whether they are good or evil. Leviticus 25, where it talks about the fact that foreigners can be made slaves and passed down as property. Those type verses of submission were the only ones that was taught. And we see this in some of these slave revolts in the Americas, how when people began to read the entire Bible, that they saw the victory of overcoming slavery. They weren't. They were saw the victory of overcoming slavery. They weren't taught that. They went and did it for themselves, and that resulted in many different slave revolts in the Americas. Unfortunately, most of them were put down. So first, let's just understand that aspect of it. The secondary part that we must realize is that when slaves came into the Caribbean, most were trained in the Caribbean and then sent to the Americas, whether it be North America or South America. Especially in the very beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, they first came into Jamaica and Bahamas and the DR and places of that nature, and then they were shipped off to North America, Central America, South America. This way, they were already preconditioned to follow whatever the master to which they were sold to would dictate. But the impact of it created a society of people who passed it down to each of their generations of children more and more slave doctrine. In my research of my own family, on my father's side, my great-great-grandfather, who was born a few years before the Civil War, became a preacher, a minister, simply because that was the religion that was passed down to him and the Bible that was passed down to him. And he taught Christianity. He learned it from his parents. They learned it from their parents and their parents and so on and so forth, until you get to the first ones that were brought over to the Americas and they were forced into this religion. So even though this particular Bible wasn't taught, the idea of teaching the slave to be Christian was something prominent, so that the slave would always be in submission to their masters. Now, as we fast forward to today, although people can read it and study it for themselves, there is still the holdover of the fact that they are still being taught to be submissive to the government, to be submissive to the reigning power, to look at themselves as coming out of the Exodus instead of recognizing that they are the ones to dominate. If you think about it, black Christians are taught more so about loving your enemies than anybody else. And they're being taught this by a God who never taught to love your enemies. This is a contradiction between the Jesus teachings and the Old Testament teachings. The Old Testament teaching, God said, kill all the Moabites, kill all the Canaanites, kill all the Perizzites, the Jebusites. Whoever is your enemy, you are to kill them. Do not make peace with the Ammonites, but to kill them, to murder them. The only people he said to not make war with initially were the Edomites, because they were your cousins, your brothers, your family, and the Egyptians, because you used to be held in bondage to them. There was a time when the Moabites were also considered not to be their enemy, but then once the Moabites became their enemy, because some of the Israelite men began to worship their God because of that good Moabite pum pum, then all of a sudden they become the enemy. So whenever somebody became your enemy, you did not love them. According to the Old Testament, you annihilated them. But by the time we get to the Jesus teachings, where Vespasian is looking to create a docile version of Judaism, because the Jews of that day were looking for a Messiah that would overthrow the Roman government, similar to how the Maccabees overthrew temporarily the Greek government that was inhabiting their land. So this Romanized version of Judaism that you call Christianity was also designed to keep people under the thumb of royalty, under the thumb of government, under the thumb of those who were in authority. And so things like pray for your leaders, and whoever government you was born under is the one that was appointed by God and through God's authority, were things that clearly, to me, are power plays by government and authorities to make sure the people stay submissive. This was not only for the slaves, but this was also for the general population as well. Because when you look at the political systems at that time frame, it was ruling with an iron fist. And the easiest way that Theodosius realized in 381 to rule the Roman government was through ruling their mind through submission. And the slave Bible was utilized in the same format to rule over the people, to which greatly outnumbered them on plantations, but not outnumbering them in society, but to make sure that they maintain their power over these people. And that's what this book represents, maintaining power over people. And that's also what your regular Bibles represent, maintaining power over people. So that is the true significance of a slave Bible. That is the true significance of how to make a Negro Christian. That is the true significance of only allowing Christian black ministers to teach certain aspects of the Bible. It is to maintain control over the people that you are oppressing, whether it be those who look like you or those who don't look like you. It is all about control and all about power. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.